Over the last few years, I've gotten to sift through and test a massive amount of backpacking gear, and I've come up with about 14 items that I think have made a giant difference to me as a backpacker. And so today I want to present them to you, gear that I wish I had started using a long time ago. Now, the first piece of gear on my list is actually a little bit unique because it's come about from a medical need. About 2 years ago, I started noticing a weird piece of skin on my ear. It was basically like a scab that just wouldn't heal. So I went to a dermatologist and they came up with the fact that it was precancerous. Now, this all came about because I had spent huge amounts of time outside with very little skin and sun protection. And it finally came back to haunt me about 2 years ago. And it really was more of a wake-up call than anything else. And my dermatologist said, you need to get yourself a real hat that will cover your ears, that will provide a little bit more skin protection for my scalp, for my neck, for my ears, places that are really getting a lot of sun exposure. So I came up with this hat, which is from American Hat Makers, and it is the Outback Crushable Hat. Now, this is a pretty expensive hat. It's $150, but it is genuine leather, and it's also super hip, at least I like to think so. Now, there's a lot of cheaper alternative versions to this that I could get, but one of the reasons why I really like this particular hat is because of its crushable nature, especially when I'm actually got a backpack with maybe a full load here. I can still look up and it doesn't alter the way that I hike or the way that I look around. And so this has been my go-to hat now for about the last year. And I wish, because of my skin, I wish I had gotten it a lot sooner than that. Now, most of you are probably a little bit more interested in like gadgets and things like that. So I definitely have some cool gadgets that I want to highlight here today. And the first one that I want to highlight is this from Flip Fuel. The Flip Fuel is a fuel transfer device. And what it allows me to do is to consolidate fuel canisters. So I like to take these little sized ones. This is about enough fuel for 4 days. But I like to buy these and then take my fuel from here and refill these before each trip. It's a very simple process. It just relies upon a temperature differential. And what that means is all I will do is I'll put one of these in a freezer or in a cool space and usually just leave this out in a warmer space, like out in the sunshine somewhere. And then I can connect these up. And then all I need to do is simply turn this and fuel will start moving from here to here because of the temperature differential in the two. Now, I've been using this Flip Fuel for about 1.5 years now, and I have found it to be really incredibly useful because one of the things that I have really for like 20 years, I had accumulated so many of these canisters that were kind of half empty or a third empty, and you never really wanted to take them on a backpacking trip. But once I started using these, I started getting into like a rhythm with doing it, and I found it to be very easy and very helpful. For safety's sake, so I don't overfill these, I like to put them on a scale, and I can then measure them. And like this one, it has the weight that it kind of should be, so 7.4 ounces. And I just keep it under there, and then I'm not worried about it having too much fuel, which can then create a pressure situation if you like, say, leave this in a hot car. One of the things that I think is really low-key cool about this is that you can save money by mostly like finding other people's discarded, partially used fuel canisters. You know, people can't fly with these things. People are always ditching partially used canisters. So for other thru hikers that are out there or long distance hikers, sometimes they just carry one of these and then they just score and bump off of like all of these partially abandoned canisters that people leave behind in post offices and things like that. So this thing weighs about 1 ounce. It costs $35. It's incredibly light. It's very easy to use. And I have found it to be a really great way to save money as well, buying these in bulk and then refilling these smaller ones that I find to be more useful and more easy to carry. I'm a big fan of Flip Fuel. They're actually like a local company to me, so I like also giving them shout outs and thank yous because they're cool. So yeah, check out Flip Fuel. So I actually brought this up on a recent video, but water filtration has actually been kind of an elusive topic to me. And it seems a little silly for somebody who's been backpacking for as many years as I have, but I have frequently found at least some reason to not fully embrace one particular water filtration system. In the last year or so, I got turned on to the Sawyer Squeeze, which I'm totally admit that I'm like way late to the game on this. But I started using this Sawyer Squeeze, and it has been the first time that I have truly been like, this is now clicking for me. Now, there was one caveat that was actually holding me back, and that was back flushing the Sawyer Squeeze or any of these sort of like Life Straw or other filtration systems that are very similar to this, the Katadyn Be Free. Simply cleaning and maintaining these has been a big headache. But the thing that has actually unlocked that is this little piece of plastic right here. So this little coupling unit is actually a side thing that you can buy from Sawyer on Garage Grown Gear. And this actually makes it so that you can really easily back flush the Sawyer Squeeze. One of the other things that I really like about this coupling unit is that this $3 piece of plastic can turn the Sawyer Squeeze into a gravity filter. Of course, it does help if you can also make sure you let a little bit of air out. Now, the great thing about Sawyer Squeezes is that they are essentially relatively inexpensive. This unit costs about 45 bucks. And if you maintain them and clean them regularly, they can put through like 10,000 or even more liters. Sawyer has done a lot with places around the world with low income and unclean water, and they've distributed these, and they've gone back like 20 years later and found the same filters still working if people just kind of take care of them. So there were two things that were holding me back from the Sawyer Squeeze in the first place. One was the original bag that Sawyer has provided for a long, long time. I hated those bags. I thought they were terrible. They were hard to fill, hard to use, and sometimes in freezing weather they would crack and break. And when I started pairing it with the Vecto water bag, then I was really like, oh, this actually makes so much sense. It's really easy to use. They're very lightweight, but I hated using the syringe to back flush. But now, by just using this, you can just use, ooh, look at that. That's me back flushing. Now, generally speaking, I wouldn't be back flushing into this bag. I'd be back flushing just out into the unknown. But yeah, you can see that is some dirty water that I'm just kicking back into my Sawyer Squeeze, because I'm basically just forcing clean water back through the squeeze. And ideally now it's just going, back into a creek or something like that. All right, so the Sawyer Squeeze itself costs about 45 bucks. The Vecto bag costs $24. And this is the little coupling unit, just a really simple piece of plastic. In my opinion, this is far superior to a syringe that you got to keep track of. You can literally just keep this on here if you want and keep these connected if you so desire. But this is $3.89 on Garage Grown Gear. So that is absolutely something I should have bought a long time ago. One of my favorite finds is a stove pot called the Petrol G3 pot. This has been out for, I think, 2 or so years. The Fire Maple G3 pot is a really simple aluminum lightweight pot that weighs very equivalent to the Toaks titanium pot, but it is far more efficient. This costs 25 bucks, and I have been using this heavily for the last year, and I've been pairing it with my 3-prong version of the Camping Moon XD2F. I have gone through quite a few iterations of stoves over the last few years, and this is one, I feel like this has kind of been a revelation to me. I can save a lot of money and I can shave a lot of weight by having a really simple stove like this. I used to use these big MSR stoves, the kind of guide level liquid fuel stoves, and to me, those are not worth it anymore. Those are so finicky, those are cumbersome, they're heavy. And this is something that, especially when I pair it with the flip fuel and I can just kind of refill these, has made it my go-to stove setup. Now, the reason why I like this particular pot is because it has this heat exchange. It's very efficient. I can get more life out of my fuel canister. And I just really like how stable it is. It's basically the same efficiency as a Jetboil while costing 25 bucks plus a $35 stove. And I did get this adapter attachment from Soto. This is the Triflex adapter, which makes this a perfect little pairing to now nest together. So this is 16 bucks, this is 35 bucks, this is 25 bucks. Now, just as a simplification of this, because this is a stove that you need to buy an extra attachment to, I have recently just picked up the Green Peak stove from Fire Maple. which is a $20 stove. And I haven't really put this through the ringer yet, so I'm not sure if it's actually a great stove. But one thing that I have found with this fire maple stove is that not all 3-prong stoves actually fit it. So if you have the MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe, those don't work. If you have the BRS 3000, those don't work. So some prongs have like a different angle on them, and it has to be this specific angle for it to fit. So just FYI out there, the versions that I found that fit are the Camping Moon with this Triflex adapter and this Green Peak stove, also from Fire Maple. So this has been a game changer for me. I love it. I think it's super fuel efficient and it works. It's worked for a long time, and really gotten a lot of life out of it and a lot of joy out of it. And I should have bought this sooner. So this was something that I started adding to my first aid kits about 2 years ago when I started doing a lot of Grand Canyon hiking. And these are Glacier Gels. These are from Adventure Medical Kits, the same maker as the first aid kit, but you need to buy an extra thing. And this is for blister care. This is the best blister care that I've ever used. Now, the most common thing that people use, that people recommend, is the moleskin. And I have found moleskin to be hard to get right. They often come apart. They often create more problems than what I find if I just ignore the problem altogether. Sometimes moleskin can compound the issue if it's not really done well. However, these are super simple to use and they really expedite the healing process of blisters. Technically, they work for burns as well, but I find them to be, whenever you have that sensitive skin, putting a Glacier Gel on them makes a huge difference, and I can get more miles in terrain like the Grand Canyon or anywhere where I'm going to be more prone to developing blisters. So these, they come in 6 packs, and I found on Amazon you can buy, like for 25 bucks, you can get a pack of 12. Blisters can be one of the most debilitating, painful things, and I don't even use them that frequently, but when I do need to put one on, I am so thankful that I've got a Glacier Gel in my first aid kit. Back to sun protection, something that I should have done a long time ago is started investing in these sun hoodies. I have really become a big sun hoodie fan over the last 2 years. This is pretty much all I hike in, and if you watch my videos, you see me pretty much wearing the exact same sun hoodie from Outdoor Vitals in video after video. This actually is the Altitude Sun Hoodie from Outdoor Vitals. You can often find it on sale. Full price is, I think, like right at 49, 50 bucks. But they're frequently on sale for like 36 bucks. It's one of the best layers out there. They're light, they're quick wicking, they're fast drying, they wick moisture away. I swear by these. I wear them all the time, and they really do protect my skin. And at the price, like sometimes it's hard to buy a hiking t-shirt for under 80 bucks, and then you get the long sleeve hoodie for like 50 bucks. So that's a score, and I highly recommend them, and I should have started wearing these long ago. Color me surprised. Over the last few years, I've actually started to become an ultralight backpacker. Now, I'm not a hardcore minimalist like some people, but I have definitely started shifting my gear away from the traditional gear and towards the ultralight gear. And so one of the things that's actually been super helpful for me is just more organization within a minimalist ultralight pack. So this is from my buddy Backcountry Exposure, who now sells these on Garage Grown Gear. Congrats to my buddy for opening up his shop. So I love these things. These are great. I just kind of have them be my kitchen bag. So I'm gonna have like my camp cups and my cutlery and lighters and maybe a knife if I'm carrying a pocket knife or something like that. And my buddy is selling them on Garage Grown Gear, and I'm super proud of him, and I love these bags. I wish he had been selling them earlier, and I would have bought one sooner. Congrats, Devin. Good luck with your new shop, and for everybody out there, go check them out. Pretty cool stuff. So about a year and a half ago, I started carrying electrolytes on every backpacking trip, or just like when I go out hiking, I'd take electrolytes with me. And having a good electrolyte replacement mix with me on a backpacking trip has actually made a huge difference. And it's something that has become a regular practice for me. And my favorite one that I've started using is from Element. If you've been on the channel, you've seen me and heard me talk about Element a lot in the past. They actually just came out with a new flavor called Lemonade Salt. Lemonade Salt. It's my new favorite. In a lot of ways, it's actually been kind of a game changer. So I didn't really realize how much just drinking water isn't really enough to get all of those things that you're missing, all of those electrolytes that you're losing back. What I had been finding is that at the end of a long day of backpacking, I would feel a lot of fatigue, maybe headaches. I'd feel kind of restless and just kind of feeling like junk. And so once I started regularly taking Element, I really noticed a huge difference in how I felt. So right now, if you want to try Element, just go to the link below at drinkelement.com/erichanson, and Element will throw in a free sample pack with any purchase. And I also highly recommend that you get a chance to try out the new lemonade salt. It's like the best flavor. I can't believe that they didn't come out with this long ago either. Thanks to Element for sponsoring this video. Now back to it. All right, so one more little thing I keep in this little ditty bag. Sometimes I'll strap it to the outside of my backpack, but this is a GVY thermometer. This costs 15 bucks. It weighs about an ounce, and I really love having a thermometer with me. And it's a practice that I started doing about 9 months ago to carry a thermometer with me. And I actually think every backpacker out there should carry a thermometer with them. Not because they have to know what the current temperature is, but because it's so helpful for gathering data. So if you're ever on a trip and you notice oh, I was kind of cold last night. What was that about? It's like, well, if you can look back at your temperature and see oh, it was 27 degrees. I thought it was only supposed to be 32 or 35 and it was 27 and I was cold. I think what it really does for me is it really helps me make future decisions to improve my kit, improve my setup, and improve my preparedness for future backpacking trips. It's a small weight penalty at 1 ounce to just throw it into a backpack and get a huge amount of data and information for future trips. So I started packing differently or packing different sleeping bags because I had better guesses. It was oh, when it's at this temperature, I'm comfortable. And when it's at this temperature, I'm uncomfortable. I know my setup better because of having this little simple thermometer with me. So I highly recommend it. They're cheap, 14 bucks. You can get them on Amazon, and it'll make you a better, more dialed-in backpacker. Here's a fun big ticket item. So I wish that I had actually gotten a trekking pole tent a lot sooner in my career. So shockingly enough, it was only 2 years ago that I used my first trekking pole tent. And that was my first dabbling with being ultralight curious. The X-Mid itself is a $270 tent, which I feel is actually a really reasonable price tag for as good of a tent as it is. And if you want to be a hardcore thru hiker and go nuts, you can get the X-Mid Pro. For those who are trying to go farther, go faster, and maybe unlock some terrain that they wouldn't otherwise get to, getting a trekking pole tent can be a part of that, especially if you're already a trekking pole user, which I'm also an advocate of. If you happen to be already carrying trekking poles, to me it's kind of a no-brainer to start learning how to use trekking pole tents. It's a great intuitive way to shed bulk, to shed weight, and to have a really bomber setup. Something that's kind of an underrated aspect of trekking pole tents is how solid they are in inclement weather. Because the trekking poles themselves are so rigid, you can really make a bomber structure out of them. This is super pricey, but even just the regular X-Mid is an awesome investment for those who want to go farther and faster and be lighter. So that is something I wish I would have invested in years ago. Go back to a relatively inexpensive item after talking about a $550 tent. This is something I have also talked about on my channel a bit before, and you've probably seen it, but this is also one of the game changers for me. This is the Arcade belt, and it's a stretchy belt. And if you've never used a stretchy belt before, it makes a huge comfort difference. For a long time, I'd been backpacking with just kind of your regular old whatever belt I just had around my house. And what I found was that as I had a heavy backpack resting on my hips, that would often create additional pain points over a long backpacking trip. But I also needed something to keep my pants from just sliding off my booty. And this was a find that I made before a trip, kind of last minute at a gear shop. I just threw one in for 35 bucks, and I couldn't believe it how big of a difference in comfort it made for me, and I've been hooked ever since. So this is from Arcade, stretchy belt, 35 bucks. I love them and think they're great. So check them out if you've never used these or added one of these into your repertoire. Arcade belt. Kind of in a similar vein, but a good pair of hiking pants to me makes a huge difference. Now these are expensive, but I regularly use the Fjallraven Keb trousers. These are my all-time favorites. They look super cool. I love how they feel. They're highly versatile. I wear them in a lot of environments. They have a lot of pockets to them. They have ventilation on the legs, which actually is something I truly, truly love. They're very comfortable to wear. They're slightly water repellent, and they're just durable. Yes, they are expensive pair of pants. These are $240 pants, but I've been using this pair for 2 years. Getting a good pair of hiking pants that you can trust, that are highly versatile, makes a huge difference. I wish I would have invested in these long ago. All right, this is kind of a new one for me, but this is also something I really wish I would have done sooner. This is the pillow strap, which, shout out to Miranda Goes Outside. If you pay attention to her, you've seen this before. She always uses one of these pillow straps. And I got this because of Miranda. So I started seeing her use this, and I thought, I gotta check this out. It's like a 2-ounce thing that you can add on. It's got this really comfortable material, and it just literally straps around your air mattress, and it holds your pillow in place. So I have a pillow, which to me has always been one of the things that I absolutely advocate for new backpackers, for whoever wants to get into backpacking. Get a pillow. It makes a huge, huge difference. I've been using pillows for years, but there's often a problem with them squirreling around at night. On a cold night, if you fully dived into your sleeping bag and you have a pillow inside your sleeping bag, you actually can't get the sleeping bag to sit right around your head, and it's keeping your head kind of out of the mummy bag, because you're not actually supposed to sleep with the pillow inside your sleeping bag. Maybe most people don't know that. But if you just have it outside of your mattress, outside of your sleeping bag, and just on the mattress, there is a 0% chance it will stay there for longer than 3 seconds. So if you get these straps, you can strap it down, it'll stay in place throughout the night, and it will just be a comfort elevation, and you will sleep better. And anything that you can invest in that will make you sleep better, I think is oftentimes worth it. And so this is like a $34 item, 2 ounces, but for the comfort and for the increased ability to sleep, absolutely worth it. And thanks to Miranda for turning me onto this thing. I should have tried it out long ago. Something that I was really hesitant about for a long time was incorporating a camp chair into my backpacking kit. And I was, for a long time, I swore them off, and I've told this story before, but something that happened to me is I went on a group backpacking trip with like 10 guys, and I was the only person that didn't have a chair with me. And I felt like a social pariah because I physically couldn't sit with them without feeling like an outsider. So once I started getting chairs and backpacking chairs, I was like, man, what have I been doing? And the first real iteration for me that really worked was the Helinox Chair Zero. Famous chair, lots of publicity around this one. And this one costs about $140 currently and weighs just over 1 pound, like 1 pound, 1 ounce, I think. And I still think this is one of the best chairs on the market. Now, famously, Nemo came out with one that's very similar and has actually been a very comfortable chair. This is a $180 chair, and it weighs a few ounces more. I think it's technically a little bit more comfortable because it does have the ability to recline it. But I would say if you're considering a chair, I don't necessarily know if it's worth stepping up to a $180 chair when a $140 chair, already expensive, is actually like unbelievably great. So I wish I had invested in this. I turned 40, about a year and a half ago, and that really was the turning point for me where I was like, yeah, I need something to help me take some pressure off my knees and legs at the end of a day. Sitting in a chair after a long hike, even though there's a weight penalty to it, I think that it's absolutely worth it, and I've become a big proponent. I carry them on most of my trips now. I love carrying a chair. At the end of the day, when I get to sit down in my chair and cook from a chair, it is so much more comfortable. That's one of the few things that I've kind of crisscrossed, added more comfort focused into my trips as I've become also more of an ultralight backpacker over the few years. So there is like a little bit of a crisscross there, adding in a bulky, a thing that weighs over 1 pound and costs a lot of money, but this is so awesome. I love these things, and if you haven't tried them, they're worth it. So I've had a little bit of a complicated relationship with turning ultralight. And actually, like, for a long time, I was the heavy pack guy. And in fact, in many ways, I still am, because I love camera equipment and carrying loads and loads of food and all sorts of things. I've never been the ultralight minimalist. So I often stayed away from ultralight backpacks. But that changed, and one of the first backpacks that I started using, I actually really didn't like that much. But the first one was the Hyperlite Southwest 3400. It was kind of a famous backpack, and I got into it, and I didn't like it. And that turned me off on ultralight packs. I thought that they were bad. But what really was the problem was that I just wasn't using the right one. So I didn't find one until another year or so later that I actually was like, oh, this works for me. And the first pack that did that for me was the modestly priced Outdoor Vitals Shadowlight 60-liter backpack. It's a 2-pound backpack. It costs about $200, $210. It's very simple. And this was the one pack that I started using as like an ultralight, my dabbling in ultralight, where I was like, this makes sense. I get why people freak out and love these things. It has been a great way to shave 3 or 4 pounds off of what I carry. I'm still not really an ultralight backpacker, but learning to go down that road has been a big step for me. And I feel like, especially as I age, carrying lighter loads has made a big difference. And so getting a good quality ultralight bag has made a big difference to me. And I kind of wish I'd been more open to experimenting with that a lot sooner in life. All right, that's my list of gear that I wish I would have bought sooner. Big thanks to my buddy Dan Becker for giving me permission to totally steal his video idea and just run with it. So I hope you found this helpful. Leave me in the comments below what you think is your favorite pieces of gear that you should have bought sooner, or just gear that's made a big difference for you as a backpacker out there. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Eric Hansen. I'll see you later, everybody.